In a small town, one black woman took a stand when a racist cop tried to destroy her life. But what this officer didn't know, she wasn't just any woman. She had a secret, and it would cost him everything. Before we dive in, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. We've got something big coming, so don't miss it. This isn't just a fight for survival. This is the story of justice, of a quiet woman who fought back, and of a cop who thought he could get away with extortion until he learned the hard way. The quiet girl he targeted, she wasn't just any girl. She was ready to take him down. The streets of Cedar Springs weren't quiet by nature. But today there was a strange tension in the air. Something felt different, like the calm before a storm. Monica Hayes, a 24-year-old black woman, walked down Main Street with a bag of groceries hanging from her left hand. Her dark curls bounced slightly with each step, and her navy blue hoodie seemed to blend in with the evening shadows as she made her way home from work. Her apartment wasn't far, a humble place she was proud of, but her heart always felt heavy after her shift at the local diner. The weight of the day wasn't on her mind, though. She was just about to cross the street when a loud screech from behind caught her attention. "Hey you, stop right there," a voice shouted. Monica froze. She turned to see Officer Gerald Stevens, a tall white officer, already stepping out of his patrol car. His expression was unreadable, but there was a glint in his eyes that made Monica's stomach drop. "Is there a problem, officer?" Monica asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Oh, there's definitely a problem," Stevens said, a smug smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He walked toward her, his boots tapping against the pavement, his hands resting on his utility belt like he was ready for something more than just a conversation. Monica stood tall, but her heartbeat quickened. She knew this officer, knew his reputation. Everyone in Cedar Springs did. Officer Stevens wasn't known for keeping the peace. He was known for his oppressive behavior, particularly toward the black community. He was the kind of cop who used his badge to intimidate and manipulate. "What's this about?" Monica repeated, trying to keep her composure. Stevens eyed her like a hawk circling its prey. "I saw you walking down the street in a neighborhood that doesn't exactly fit your kind, miss," he said with a tone that dripped with condescension. Monica's jaw tightened, but she held back her retort. "I don't see how that's your business," she replied coolly. His eyes narrowed. "Oh, I think it is. You're a long way from the block you belong to." Monica's mind raced. This wasn't just a random stop. He was baiting her, trying to provoke a reaction. She stood still, hands clenched around the grocery bag, heart pounding in her chest. "I don't have time for this," she said, shifting her weight slightly, preparing to walk past him. Stevens stepped into her path, blocking her way. "Not so fast," he said, his tone now darker. "You're gonna need to show me some ID, sweetheart." Monica's eyes narrowed. "For what?" "Walking home from work." "For being where you don't belong," he said. "Now show me your ID, or I'll take you in for resisting arrest." Monica's pulse spiked. She had no intention of letting this man intimidate her. "I haven't done anything wrong," she said firmly. "You're harassing me." "I said show me your ID." Stevens barked, his hand now resting on the holster of his gun. Monica stepped back. "No," she said, her voice steady. "I'm not giving you anything." Stevens' eyes flashed with rage. His hand moved toward the gun at his side, but just as quickly he paused. He saw the crowd of people watching from across the street, some holding up phones, others just staring in disbelief, his face twisted in frustration. "You think you can get away with this?" he sneered. "I'm not the one causing a scene," Monica said, keeping her ground. "You are." For a brief moment, Stevens considered his next move. He knew this was a delicate situation, but there was one thing he knew for sure. He didn't like being challenged, and he certainly didn't like the idea of anyone getting the better of him, especially someone like Monica. "Fine," he growled, "but this isn't over." With that, he turned and walked back to his patrol car. Monica's breath caught in her chest. She was free, but the unease in her stomach didn't go away. She knew he would find another way to come after her. She stood there for a moment, watching him leave, wondering what it was that had set him off. There was something about the way he had looked at her, as if he'd already made up his mind about who she was and where she belonged. As Stevens drove off, Monica shook her head, muttering to herself, "I won't let him get away with this." 2 blocks away, in a modest house tucked behind an old fence, Marcus Hayes was finishing up his dinner. The tall, broad-shouldered man with the short-cropped beard had seen his share of danger. A decorated Marine who had served 3 tours overseas, Marcus now lived a quieter life, working as a security consultant and focusing on his family. But that didn't mean he had forgotten his training or the sense of justice that ran deep in his veins. In fact, it had only intensified over the years. As he sat at the kitchen table, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from his sister, Tasha. Monica just had an altercation with Officer Stevens. He harassed her, Marcus. He's been doing this to her for a while now. Marcus stared at the screen, his knuckles white as his grip tightened on the phone. The rage he'd learned to control during his military service boiled over now. He knew Stevens, had heard the rumors, seen the arrogance in his eyes before. But he didn't know this would be the breaking point. He stood up, his chair scraping across the floor, his fists clenched. Monica was his sister, and no one was going to hurt her again. Monica stared at her phone long after the screen had gone black. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from a quiet fury she could no longer contain. This wasn't the first time Officer Stevens had harassed her, but this time it had been different. This time he crossed a line, publicly, without shame, without fear of consequence. She sat on her couch, replaying the moment again and again, the way he stared at her like she was nothing, the threat in his voice, the way he called her sweetheart like she was a child. Her brother Marcus hadn't replied yet. That alone told her everything. Across town, Officer Stevens leaned back in his car, parked just outside the 24-hour diner where Monica worked. He didn't even bother hiding his patrol car. The blue and white SUV sat glaringly under the buzzing fluorescent light, like a predator waiting outside its prey's cave. Inside the car, Stevens pulled out his phone and opened a private messaging app, one that couldn't be traced easily. He typed, "The girl didn't bite today, but I'll get her next time. I know she's hiding something." He hit send. His contact replied seconds later, "Make it look clean, and make sure she pays. We warned you not to be soft." Stevens grinned, a cold, sinister grin. He didn't like being challenged, especially not by a young black woman who dared to stand her ground. He reached into his glove box and pulled out a small digital recorder. He stared at it like a tool of war. "If she won't break," he muttered to himself, "I'll break her life." Marcus stood outside Monica's apartment building, breathing in the cool night air. His military instincts hadn't dulled. The moment he arrived, he noticed the patrol SUV parked down the street, the same one Monica had described. He walked past it casually, just a man taking a stroll, but his mind was calculating, observing. He noted the plate, the number of surveillance cameras nearby. He even noticed a faint red light blinking on the dashboard, meaning the dash cam was off. Marcus smiled bitterly. Stevens thought he was being slick. Inside Monica's apartment, she rushed to the door the moment she heard the knock. She opened it to find Marcus standing there, dressed in all black, his expression unreadable, but his eyes said it all. Anger, protectiveness, and something else, a readiness. "Marcus," she whispered, stepping aside. "You came? I told you I would, didn't I?" he said softly. She nodded and shut the door behind him. They sat in the living room for a moment. No words exchanged at first. Then Monica broke the silence. "He's not just harassing me anymore, Marcus. He's waiting outside the diner. I saw him earlier tonight. I think he's trying to trap me." Marcus looked at her intently. "Trap you how?" "I don't know, but I know that look. I've seen it before. He's planning something dirty." Marcus sat forward. "Monica, has he ever asked you for money?" Monica hesitated. Her voice dropped. "Yes, twice. He said if I didn't want things to get messy around my job, I should make regular contributions to his department fund. At first I thought it was some kind of joke, but then he followed me home one night." Marcus's eyes darkened. "He's extorting you." She nodded. "And I think he's done it to other girls too, but no one ever talks about it. Everyone's too scared." Marcus stood and paced. The same pulse that had prepared him for ambushes and war zones now flooded his veins with purpose. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "This ends now." The next morning, Monica went to work like usual, but this time she carried a tiny lapel mic inside her apron pocket. Marcus had wired it himself. She also wore a small body cam underneath her coat, discreet and high quality, the kind Marcus had used in his elite unit. If Stevens tried anything, they'd have it all on record. And like clockwork, the moment her shift ended and she stepped outside the diner, the patrol SUV rolled up. Stevens got out, his posture cocky, his grin infuriating. "Miss Hayes," he said, "fancy seeing you again." Monica kept her face neutral. "Can I help you, officer?" "Actually, yes," he said, stepping closer. "You and I need to talk." "About what?" He glanced around. "Somewhere private. I prefer we speak right here. Public spaces are safer, don't you think?" Stevens chuckled. "You've got nerve." "No," Monica replied, "I've got rights." Stevens' grin faltered. For the first time, he noticed the steady way she stood, the calm in her voice. Something was different, but he still pressed forward. "I told you before, sweetheart, we can make your life easier if you're cooperative. Otherwise, a few things might show up in your file. Maybe an anonymous tip about drugs, or resisting an officer. Monica's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you an opportunity. Is this how you treat all women, Officer Stevens? No, he said smugly. Only the ones who think they're too smart. Behind them, parked across the street, Marcus sat in a black SUV, listening to everything. His laptop screen displayed a clear feed of the audio and body cam footage. His jaw clenched. This man was going down. But Marcus knew one thing. Corrupt cops like Stevens didn't operate alone. They had protection, and power, and connections. This wasn't just about extortion. This was bigger, and Marcus was going to peel it all apart, one name at a time. Marcus sat in the dimly lit motel room he had rented under a false name. The soft hum of the mini-fridge and the buzzing light above were the only sounds. On his desk were several open files, a burner phone, his laptop streaming the earlier body cam footage, and a voice recorder. He had watched that diner footage 5 times already. Stevens had practically confessed, arrogant, loud, and sure he was untouchable. But Marcus knew better. Corruption like this didn't thrive without roots. He clicked over to a dark web portal that required his special clearance from his former job. He didn't work for the FBI anymore, but that didn't mean he had forgotten how to use their tools. And this time, he was digging for war. He typed in, "Known officer misconduct reports, Officer Thomas Stevens, Oakland County." It took seconds. The screen flickered. Redacted complaint, disciplinary warning, civilian complaint sealed, allegation dropped. Same pattern, different women, different years, same name, Stevens. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his jaw. This man has been doing this for years, he muttered, and they've been covering it. He clicked a tab labeled Internal Relations, a backdoor system he still had a back channel to. He wasn't supposed to have access anymore, but the moment Monica had called him crying that night, he'd known he'd have to bend rules. His eyes narrowed as he found a trail. One of the complaints had come from a young woman named Kiara Simmons, 23, former waitress, filed in 2019. She claimed Officer Stevens harassed her, demanded money, and threatened her family. The case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. Marcus didn't believe in coincidences. He jotted her name down, along with an address pulled from a deep database. Later that night, Marcus stood in front of a tiny 2-bedroom house tucked into a quiet side street. The porch light was out, and the house looked weary, like it had seen too much too soon. He knocked. The door creaked open an inch, revealing a woman with tired eyes and a hand still wrapped around a toddler. "Can I help you?" "Kiara Simmons?" Marcus asked gently. She hesitated. "Who's asking?" "My name is Marcus Hayes. My sister is Monica. Officer Stevens is trying to extort her. I believe he did the same to you. I'm not here to hurt you. I just need to talk." She stared at him, cautious, reading him. "You FBI?" He paused. "Not anymore, but I know how to make things happen." She opened the door. Inside, Kiara poured him a glass of tap water and sat on the edge of the couch. "I was 23, she said. Had a little bartending gig downtown. Stevens used to show up every night. Never drank much. Just watched. Said weird things. One day he cornered me in the alley after work. Told me I owed him money for being safe. Said I was lucky to have police protection." Marcus clenched his jaw. "He ever get physical?" he asked. Kiara nodded slowly. "Grabbed my arm. Threw me against the wall once. I filed a report. Guess what happened?" Marcus didn't answer. "They suspended me at work. My landlord evicted me a month later. I stopped showing up at court. I just gave up. Nobody cared. You still have the report?" She reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded envelope. "Don't know why I kept it," she said. "Guess I wanted proof that I wasn't crazy." Marcus took the envelope carefully. It was real, signed, stamped, and buried. "I'm going to fix this," he said quietly. "Not just for Monica, for you too." Kiara looked at him with a tired smile. "I hope you can," she said. "But be careful. Stevens isn't the only one." Marcus didn't flinch. "I'm counting on it." Back in town, Stevens sat in his cruiser reviewing a list on his phone. He had a folder labeled Special Notes, a creepy unofficial record of all the women he'd targeted, monitored and filed in his mind as potential leverage. Monica's name was circled twice. He stared at it now, frowning. She hadn't cracked like the others. Worse, she had stood up to him. Something felt off. He checked his mirror again. No signs of a tail, no watchers, but he couldn't shake the feeling. Then his burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You're being watched." He bolted upright in his seat, scanned the street, stepped out of the car with his hand on his gun. But no one was there. He cursed under his breath. "Paranoia," he muttered. "Gotta get her before she ruins everything." What Stevens didn't know, what he would never have imagined, was that Marcus had already sent his digital footprint to 3 former colleagues in cybercrime. Monica's footage, Kiara's old report, And more names were coming. And Marcus wasn't just building a case, he was building a trap. The next day, Monica walked confidently through the local courthouse. She wore a black blazer and jeans and carried a sealed envelope. Inside was her own sworn affidavit, the USB drive with the audio, and copies of the previous reports Marcus had recovered. She walked straight to the desk of Detective Marie Delgado, one of the few officers in the department who had a reputation for not taking bribes. Delgado raised her brow. "You again." "I'm not here to be ignored," Monica said calmly. "This time I've got evidence." Delgado stared at her for a moment, then motioned her to sit. As Monica laid out the files on her desk, a silent war began. A war of truth against corruption, and this time someone had come armed, not with guns, but with receipts. The next few days were a blur of tension. Monica didn't sleep much, staying awake in the silence of her apartment, watching the news, making calls, and praying the whole mess would end quickly. But she knew, deep down, that it was only going to get worse. Detective Marie Delgado had taken her evidence and promised action. Monica had recounted everything: the harassment, the threats, the attempted extortion, and Delgado had seemed genuinely moved. There was something different about her. She wasn't scared to ruffle feathers, and she knew the power that Stevens wielded over the department. But something still nagged at Monica. Stevens was dangerous. He had ties, influence, and the kind of confidence that came from knowing that no one had ever stood up to him before. As much as she wanted to be hopeful, a part of her braced for the storm that was surely coming. Meanwhile, Stevens was feeling the pressure. He could sense something was shifting. People at the station were starting to look at him differently. The whispers had started. Officers who usually greeted him with smiles and jokes now looked at him with cold, appraising eyes. He knew he had been a little reckless, but it was nothing new. He had always been able to sweep things under the rug until now. He stared at his phone again. Another anonymous message. "She's getting too close, you need to act fast." His heart skipped a beat. Who was this? Why now? He slammed the phone down on the desk. He'd been in situations like this before. It was all part of the game. He just needed to neutralize her, and it would all blow over. He couldn't afford to be exposed. He looked at his wall of old photos, mostly of him and his colleagues at various events, their smiles plastered in front of cameras. He had power. He had control. He was untouchable. Or so he thought. The message was clear. Monica Hayes was coming for him. By the time evening fell, Marcus had already made his move. He had spoken with Langston Cruz, his old army buddy, and had made some inquiries. The situation was escalating, and he couldn't afford to wait any longer. Stevens was digging himself deeper with every passing day. Marcus met with a few trusted colleagues who still worked at the bureau, people who had seen Stevens' name pop up too many times on blacklists. The department had its share of dirty officers, but Stevens had become the new target for those trying to clean house. They had agreed on one thing: Stevens needed to be taken down, but it had to be handled quietly. No arrests, no public scandals, just a clean operation. Monica woke up early the next morning to an email from Detective Delgado. It was brief, but it confirmed what she already knew: Stevens was on the radar. Delgado had spoken with a few key people in internal affairs and had started digging through Stevens' past. The department was finally taking the case seriously. Monica felt a flicker of hope, but it was fleeting. The fear still lingered. She couldn't shake the thought that Stevens would come for her again, this time more aggressively. She had already begun preparing. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Marcus. "Meet me. I've got new intel." She grabbed her coat, locked the door behind her, and headed to their usual meeting spot in the park. The quiet, wooded area near the river had always been their place of safety, away from prying eyes, away from the noise. Marcus was already there, leaning against the fence, looking like the calm before a storm. He never showed fear. It was one of the things Monica admired most about him. "I've been in touch with a few people," Marcus said, without wasting time. "Stevens isn't just messing with you. He's been doing this for years. We've tracked down several cases, all similar to yours, and he's been protected because of it." Monica felt a cold chill run through her. "How protected?" "His connections go all the way up the ladder," Marcus explained. "We've got names, but it's going to take time to break this down. I'm pushing for more from the bureau, but we're on our own for now." Monica clenched her fists, a wave of anger flooding her. "This needs to end, Marcus. I'm not going to let him keep doing this to women, to me." Marcus gave her a reassuring look. "We'll end it, but it's going to take everything we've got." They both knew it wouldn't be easy. Stevens wasn't going to give up without a fight, and Monica had no intention of backing down. As the days went on, Stevens grew more erratic. He was slipping, and he knew it. The pressure from his superiors mounted, but instead of backing down, he went into overdrive. His old methods weren't working anymore, and that made him dangerous. He started following Monica more closely, showing up at her apartment building late at night, sending her threatening messages from untraceable accounts. One evening, just as Monica stepped out for her usual shift at the diner, Stevens appeared out of nowhere, walking swiftly towards her. "Still think you're untouchable?" Stevens sneered. Monica didn't hesitate this time. She was prepared. "I'm done with you," she said, her voice steady. "You're finished." Stevens stopped in his tracks, confused by her calm demeanor. "What do you mean? I'm just getting started." "No," Monica said, taking a deep breath. "You're the one who's finished. We've got everything." Stevens' face paled. "What are you talking about?" Monica pulled out her phone. She had it all. The recordings, the messages, the testimony. The net was closing in. "You've been exposed," she said, walking past him. "You'll never hurt anyone again." As the night went on, Stevens returned to his patrol car, rattled and unsettled. He knew she wasn't bluffing. His time was running out, and soon all his dark secrets would be exposed. But what Stevens didn't know was that Monica wasn't alone anymore. Marcus had played his part, and now it was time for them to finish it. The battle was just beginning. The tension in the diner was suffocating. Stevens, still standing in the doorway, was a man on the edge. He had always thrived on intimidation and fear, but today those tools felt dull and ineffective. Monica and Marcus weren't backing down, and he knew deep in his gut that his web of lies and extortion was about to unravel. But he wasn't ready to go down without a fight. His hand twitched toward his gun. "Don't even think about it," Marcus said, his voice cold as ice. He took a step forward, his hand resting on his own weapon, not drawing it, but making it clear that he was ready if Stevens moved. Monica's gaze never left the officer. "You're done, Stevens. The whole town's seen your face now. You can't intimidate anyone anymore." Stevens sneered, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. He glanced around, but it was too late. Marcus was already one step ahead. "Too many people have been hurt by you. Too many women. Too many lives ruined by your corruption. I'm done letting you get away with this." Stevens took a step back, his eyes darting to the door. He was calculating his escape, but Marcus was right in front of him now, a wall he couldn't pass. "I'll bury both of you," Stevens spat, his voice full of venom. "You think you're some kind of hero? I'm the law here. I run this town." Marcus chuckled softly, the sound like gravel grinding underfoot. "You don't run anything, Stevens. You've been a parasite, feeding off the people who trusted you." Monica stepped closer, her jaw tight with fury. "You've extorted people, used your badge to hurt innocent people for far too long." "Shut up," Stevens yelled, his voice shaking with rage. He reached for his weapon again, this time faster, but Marcus was quicker. Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind Stevens' back with a swift motion. The gun slipped from Stevens' hand and clattered to the floor. Stevens grunted in pain, but he didn't stop fighting. He swung his elbow backward, trying to hit Marcus in the ribs, but Marcus was too fast. He caught Stevens' arm and pinned it to his side. "Enough, Stevens," Marcus growled. "You don't have the power anymore." The restaurant was silent except for the sound of their breathing, the buzzing of the overhead lights, and the quiet hum of the fridge in the back. Monica stood beside Marcus, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of anger and triumph. "Everything you've done is on record now," Marcus said. "Every illegal move, every threat, every bit of extortion you've done is going to cost you. You've been watched for months. There's nowhere for you to hide." Stevens' face drained of color. The weight of his actions finally hit him. He had been playing a game of dominance for so long, thinking he was untouchable, thinking he could make people fear him and pay him off without consequence. But now, he was the one cornered, and the people who'd been watching him were the ones who had the power. Monica stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to see your face again, Stevens. Not after everything you've done to me and to so many others." Stevens glared at her, his breathing heavy, sweat beading on his forehead. "You think this is over?" he sneered, his voice trembling. "You think the higher-ups won't protect me? You think the corruption here will just fall apart because of you? You're nothing. A nobody." Monica's expression softened for just a moment before she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm not a nobody, and I'm not backing down. Not anymore." Marcus kept a firm hold on Stevens, his eyes dark with resolve. "The investigation into you has already started. It's too late to hide behind your badge. You'll never get away with this," Stevens said through gritted teeth. But the venom in his words was hollow. He knew now he was caught. The door swung open. Detective Delgado walked in, her posture stiff, but there was a sense of resolve in her eyes. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" Monica's heart skipped. She had trusted Delgado, but now it felt like they were all standing on the edge of a cliff. The tension in the air thickened. Stevens looked at Delgado, his face twisting in frustration. "You can't do this, Marie. You'll regret it." Delgado stood her ground, I've seen enough of your regrets, Stevens. Your time's up. She motioned to one of the officers who had followed her in. Take him in. The officer stepped forward, cuffing Stevens' hands behind his back. Stevens made no move to resist now. He had lost. The walls he had built around himself had crumbled. You're done, Marcus said quietly, his grip loosening slightly on Stevens as the officer took him away. Monica breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't over yet, but it was the first step. Stevens was led out the door, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. He was still muttering threats under his breath, but there was nothing left to back him up. The town had seen him for what he was. Delgado turned to Monica and Marcus. Thank you for everything. We've got this from here. Monica nodded, still processing the weight of what had just happened. Thank you, detective, for actually doing your job. Delgado smiled faintly. There's a lot more to do, but we'll make sure Stevens never hurts anyone again. As Stevens was driven away in the back of a patrol car, Marcus turned to Monica, his expression softened. It's not over, but we're one step closer. Monica nodded. I'm not backing down. Not now, not ever. She looked around the diner. The lights flickered. The hum of the refrigerators filled the space. But there was peace now. The fight wasn't over, but she had won the first battle.